I've had a young lad who's been bitten by an adder.
Okay, is it swollen?
Yep.
How far does it go up the hand or finger?
Oh, I'd say it's going up to the wrist at the moment.
It's up to the wrist, yeah?
He's vomiting now.
"13-year-old Jamie Curtis has been bitten on the hand by Britain's only poisonous snake, the adder. He's being treated in Maidstone Hospital and has now stopped vomiting.
This is Dr. Gupta, our paediatric registrar.
Hi. Jamie, how are you? How's your hand? Sore still?
Yeah, very. I was on the South Downs with the rest of the family, having a little picnic. Me and my brother went off exploring. I went to sit down and a snake crawled over my hands. My brother put a stick over it and dared me to pick it up, so I picked it up and swung around and bit my knuckle.
As you can see, he had actually the bite mark which was here, which was sort of below the metacarpal joint, and the swelling has actually extended quite a bit there. Earlier on it was there. If you can see, we are marking it. This is the current mark actually which I put just 2 seconds ago. That is the main concern. There's clear change in the color of the hand. If you can see, it looks blue. So this is quite a serious sort of snake bite.
When Jamie was first admitted, his doctors contacted Guy's and St Thomas's Medical Toxicology Unit in southeast London.
Hello, Poisons.
It's part of the National Poisons Information Service.
We definitely know it was an adder or a weak
He said it was because he had his reptile book with him and...
Okay. Early features of poisoning would include abdominal pain, vomiting, sweating. He'd probably feel quite weak and thirsty and confused.
Adder bites vary. It depends on the summer, because if it's a warm and hot summer, then you tend to get more bites. But on average, I suppose we get something like 100-ish calls a year about adder bites in humans and probably about 20, 30 in dogs.
The adder is a protected species. It has a V-shaped mark on its head and a black and brown zigzag pattern along its body.
We were contacted within an hour or so of the bite, and he was bitten on the finger, and it was noticeable within a few minutes that the swelling started to go up his arm. And that's very typical when an adder bites and injects venom, which is called envenomation.
The venom injected into Jamie's hand poisons the blood, so it can no longer properly clot, and it can attack and weaken the heart. The poison travels through the tissue of the arm, destroying any cell it comes into contact with. Intracellular fluid released from these cells starts to build up beneath the skin, causing the swelling. The body's reaction is to send white blood cells to the site of the bite to fight the poison, but that can cause further swelling, which can cut off the blood supply. Without blood, the tissue in the arm may die, leading to the breakdown of muscle and the skin with the risk of gangrene. If the swelling doesn't go down soon, the doctors will have to operate to relieve the pressure.
Hello, London Poisons Information.
Oh, hi. It's one of the paediatric estates.
While the majority of calls to the Poisons Unit are about deliberate or accidental overdoses, sometimes they must respond to strange and rare cases.
Hello, Poisons?
Hello, it's A&E at Bury General. I don't know if you can help me, actually. I've got a lady who's rung me up. She was opening bananas and a big brown spider jumped out and it actually bit her.
Oh, no.
It was in a plastic packaging.
Yeah, do you know where they'd come from?
No, just the supermarket.
The unit also provides a service to vets assisting with animals that have been poisoned.
So I think
and occasionally those calls too are unusual.
About how he's been using them.
One of my favourite ones was a case involving a customs dog, a sniffer dog, who'd actually was so pleased on actually finding the cannabis that it had found that it ate it. We said, well, how do you know it's eaten it? He said, well, it is behaving very oddly. It's become obsessed with its own reflection in a mirrored door. And I had this lovely note from the vet saying the outcome of the case was that the dog developed a very laissez-faire attitude to its work.
One of the rarer poisonings the units dealt with in recent years involved a family living in the suburbs of Surbiton. Kenneth Elkins was an office manager, admitted to hospital in 1992 with what, according to his son, were some rather curious symptoms.
He came out in loads of sores all over his skin, all over his legs, his arms and everything. They really were horrible pustule type things. He started shambling around like an old man, literally, and was very ill.
I don't really know what happened. Vague recollection of being moved fairly briskly on a trolley, but beyond that, I can't remember anything.
At that time, there were 8 family members visiting the house, and for 3 months, virtually all had been complaining of some sort of illness.
We were conscious, most of us, of aches and pains during that autumn.
And then suddenly these stores start appearing everywhere, and it wasn't just over like one of us or 2 of us, it was several of us. And you're thinking, hang on a minute, there's just this utter confusion and turmoil going on inside you all the time, trying to figure out what it is.
Meanwhile, in hospital, doctors were running tests on Kenneth Elkins, whose condition was seriously deteriorating. But they couldn't work out why he was drifting in and out of consciousness, why his speech was slurred, why he was suffering from double vision and occasionally became aggressive. Until one consultant recognized all those as being symptoms caused by a colorless, odorless and deadly substance called thallium.
Thallium is a heavy metal which is very poisonous to the central nervous system, and it simply shuts down nerve conduction. If the motor drives on the nerves do not work, you can't walk, you can't talk, you can't breathe, you can't eat, you can't drink. Everything stops.
Ivan House ran tests on Kenneth Elkins' blood and urine and confirmed that he had indeed been poisoned by thallium.
Of the 20 cases I've picked up in the 30 years, 2, as far as we can tell, were accidents. The remaining 18, there was some form of foul play.
Thallium is a strictly controlled chemical used in some industrial processes and as a rat poison. But it isn't on general sale, and anyone authorized to use it has to sign for its purchase.
The police treated it like a poisoning case. It wasn't a murder case or anything like that to begin with, but it did eventually become an investigation into an attempted murder.
At first, the chief suspects were other members of Kenneth Elkins' family. They professed their innocence, claiming that they too had been showing some symptoms of thallium poisoning, and they could prove it.
We agreed finally to have blood tests. Quite honestly, it might sound odd now, but I was frightened.
We tested the son, and he had been exposed to thallium. As a consequence of that, we decided to test the entire family. And of the 8 persons, I think it was, we tested, or maybe 9, only 2 of them were completely free of thallium. And they were 2 toddlers.
The police eventually found someone they suspected may have been responsible for poisoning the family. He worked with thallium and was known to the family. The police believed that person could have broken into the house and put the thallium in a disposable filter of a water jug, but there was never enough evidence for a prosecution.
I think once you've been changed, and we have been changed by the circumstances, we'll never go back to being exactly who we were before. It's had a long-term effect on all of us. Unfortunately, my mother has got what would be normally deemed a terminal illness, but my mum doesn't give up that easily. I myself have got various problems that just won't heal, we believe, because of the effects of the poisoning, etc. There's the deep-rooted problems my father's got, where he thinks everybody's after him.
Kenneth Elkins, who drank more water than the others, was in and out of a coma for almost 2 months while doctors treated him with the antidote for thallium. Prussian blue is a substance that swaps potassium for the thallium in the body and helps excrete the poison. He then spent 6 months in rehabilitation, learning how to walk and talk again. Today, he's confused, weak, and still moves with difficulty. He hasn't worked since the incident.
Well, the fundamental thing is that since the poisoning, of course, as I say, it's been a total disruption to lives, made a fundamental change, and I can't see any fundamental difference to life as it now is, or any real chance of returning to what used to be.
The London Poisons Unit keeps an antidote for every type of snake venom in case a zookeeper or an exotic pet owner are bitten.
Right, here is the anti-venom fridge. So we've got various different ones here. So, for example, this is it's an equine antiserum, so that tells you that, in fact, the original source of the blood serum was actually taken from a horse. This is one against the Malayan pit viper. It's made by the Thai Red Cross Society. And we've got other ones here. We've got various cobra antivenoms. Oh yes, we keep the European adder antivenom here, so this is the one that would be used against the adder.
Jamie Curtis was given a dose of adder antivenom 8 hours ago, but it hasn't worked. Dr. Rajiv Gupta has decided to give him more.
I'll wait for all.
If you feel funny, just let me know, okay? If you have any problem in your breathing or have any rash or anything like that. Hopefully you won't. I'm going to hold it nicely there, okay? Okay. So we'll see how it goes.
The antidote is injected into a vein in Jamie's arm. Its molecules are a mirror image of those in the venom and bind onto them, rendering the poison harmless until it can be excreted.
Let's have a look really. It looks quite swollen actually, doesn't it? I would have thought by now, after 8-10 hours, it should really get quite in control, and this is what I was expecting. I need to really get somebody from surgical team to see you. It is quite tense. It is much more tense than what it was.
Despite being given 2 doses of antivenom, the swelling in Jamie's arm continues. Dr. Gupta is so concerned he calls the Poisons Unit again.
I spoke to about Jamie Curtis a few hours ago.
He's the OtterBox, is he?
Yes, that's it. Now his swelling actually is increasing constantly. Now it has gone almost to elbow.
Has he had any Zagreb antivenom?
Yes, he did. 2 doses, 10 mils each.
Right, and that's had no effect on the swelling?
No.
What I'll do is I'll get Dr. Jones to get back to you again to discuss further management, because if you're not responding to antidote, they can end up with coagulation problems. It can cause compartment syndrome.
We were concerned that if his swelling continued at the rate it was going, he could potentially block off the blood supply to his right arm, and that is called compartment syndrome. And that's a potentially very unusual complication of snake bites, which we were very keen to avoid.
Hello, Jamie. My name is Alvin Cotter. I'm the surgical registrar. Been asked to see you by my colleague here. Right. Just going to have a look at your hand, okay? Turn around there. Have you got any pain in your hand? Where's the pain?
My wrist.
Right, do that. Does it hurt? Up and down? Right, okay, what we're going to do is put your arm up there so that all this fluid drains down.
Okay.
Okay.
Feel worried. Just having my wrist cut open, really. Feel worried about what it's going to end up looking like. If it's ever going to go back properly back to normal.
David West is an engineer from Enfield in Middlesex. 18 months ago, he nearly died during a canoe trip with his son Alex on the River Dart in Devon. But his rare scare didn't involve a reptile or a chemical. It was caused by a plant, and his son had never seen anything like it.
I didn't know what to do. I think that was the biggest problem. I was sitting there next to him, and I couldn't do a thing. All my training as being a lifeguard and doing first aid, I was just sitting there. All I could do was keep him in a recovery position, keep him warm, and that was it. You know, so your love there is just fitting, and sort of like, you know, you're thinking, you know, what's happening here? You know, what's going on? It was just awful.
The two men were completing a 4-hour grueling paddle when David told his son he was hungry and pulled over to the riverbank.
This is roughly the spot where my dad found some what he thought was wild parsnip. Looking at this, we've been on quite a few survival courses he has, and basically he must have thought it was a wild parsnip. Looking at all the roots here, I mean, we often go out into the wild to eat. We try and find mushrooms and sort of plants that you can actually eat, because they actually do taste very, very good. They're much better than the stuff you can actually buy in the shops, because it's basically, in a sense, it's organic, isn't it?
But it wasn't wild parsnip. It was hemlock water dropwort, arguably Britain's deadliest plant.
He took a bit off. He put a bit in his mouth to show me, okay, and he chewed it a bit and he said, "Oh, that's really lovely, it tastes like celery." And he then offered me a bit. I tried it, and I found it disgusting. It was bitter, it was awful, absolutely disgusting, so I spat it out instantly.
An hour later, when walking back to their car, David West became extremely ill.
He came to the end of the car, about here, and he was really, really violently sick. He was really going, really throwing his guts up to get this stuff out. And then all of a sudden, I look around and I just see him sort of slump down, and he just slid straight onto the floor. It was only once they got him into the ambulance did he start to fit, and it was very, very scary. It was very strange. I mean, it was just awful, really. He was lying down, and all of a sudden he's just gone like this, and his hands were outstretched like this. The fingers were pointed down like that, and his feet, his legs, and he was shaking like this, you know, as if all his muscles in his whole body had just tensed, just tensed up all at once, you know, and it was awful. I just couldn't look.
The main poison in hemlock root is ananthotoxin, which can cause a condition called opisthotonus. The central nervous system goes into spasm and the whole body becomes totally rigid.
And then we had to strap him down to stop him from moving around. And I mean, that journey just seemed to take ages. It just didn't take forever.
David West was taken to Torbay Hospital and put on life support in intensive care. The doctors were mystified by his extraordinary symptoms, so ran a whole series of standard tests.
The brain scan was done because our real worry was that he'd actually had some form of event within the brain, and our major suspicion was that he might have had a brain hemorrhage.
But there were no abnormalities in his brain.
The next day I was doing my ward round when Mr. West's son was diligently sitting at the bedside, and I asked him to go again through the whole story.
I was sat there thinking for about two or 3 minutes, actually, and I said, oh yeah, it sort of sprung to me like a light bulb and switched on.
That his father had stooped down and picked up a rooty type of plant. His son described it as looking a bit like celery.
As soon as I said it, we had a plant, that was it. They're all come rushing round. OK, what was the plant look like? What was it? Do you know where it is? And I said, yep. Remember it, because I could even remember where he threw it down.
Alex took some of the medical staff back to the exact spot on the River Dart where his father had pulled up the hemlock, and they collected samples.
Hello, poisons.
There's no antidote for hemlock poisoning, so the hospital staff were advised to give David West support and to treat each individual symptom as it arose. Remarkably, after 24 hours, he regained consciousness.
My wife, my friend, and the doctors were sitting around my bed, and I was absolutely stunned. I just could not believe that where I was. I mean, that was, I think, the biggest shock of all. It was just horrendous, really. And they started asking me questions, and I couldn't speak because I'd bitten through my tongue 2 or 3 times, 3 or 4 times actually, and it just filled my mouth up with tongue, and it was just awful, worst experience. When I looked down, my body was black and blue. Apparently, it was where they was having to hold me down and stop all the thrashing about on the floor or whatever happened. But I was absolutely black and blue, and I was in agony, absolute agony.
The doctors later concluded that David West only survived his encounter with what's nicknamed Dead Man's Finger because he was so fit. It's now been 3 days since Jamie Curtis was bitten by an adder, and his case is attracting interest. He's one of the very rare people who've needed a triple dose of anti-venom for a snake bite.
It has. Has it? Good. You feel a lot less tighter? Yeah. It does? Yeah. Good. Okay, I've brought a tape to measure your arm in case it wasn't getting better. Okay, so since you're saying it's getting better, just move your fingers.
I'm feeling right up there, just about.
Good. I'm going to take it down, so it's feeling better.
The doctor said it's getting better. They won't need to do surgery on it, and it should be better by tomorrow.
Alright then light off your TV. Alright then.
The swelling's gone right down from where it was, and we're just getting bored with waiting in, sleeping in the hospital and eating hospital food, so I can't wait to get home.
Nice to see you. See you somewhere else. Okay.
The National Poisons Information Service is not available directly to the public, but there is a Channel 4 guide that looks at how to protect yourself from poisonous substances and what to do if someone is poisoned. To order your copy, call 0906 520 4099. Calls cost £1.50 to cover postage and packaging.